solution to the January 2024 paper, and we are at question 8. It says the diagram below shows a graph of two functions of the same on the same pair of axes. The lines G and H are perpendicular. Determine the equation that represents the line G. So one of the first things we need to remember that the equation of every straight line is y is equal to mx plus c, where m is equal to the gradient of the line and c is equal to the y-intercept. So those are the first two things that we need to remember. Okay, so if we are to find m, so one of the first things that we need to do, we need to find m, and m is equal to y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. So the first point, this is our first point here, and that point is -6 on the x, 0 on the y, and our second point is this point here for G, and it's 0 on the x and 3 on the y. So if we want, so what we're going to do now, just label point x1, y1, x2, y2, and so let's just fill in the points here. So m is equal to, what is what y2 equal to? 3 minus 0 over x2, which is equal to 0 minus -6, and then we have 3 divided by 6, and that is going to be equal to a half. So therefore, and then the c is a y-intercept. So what we are going to realize is that this line here cuts the y-axis at 3. So therefore, the equation of the line is y equal to half x plus 3, and so that's the equation of the line G. Now we are to determine the equation that represents the line H. But before we do that, we need to go back and look at our diagram, and I want us to remember this point here. Note this point. So we're going to note this point, and that point is 4, 0. So 4 on the x and 0 on the y. Okay, so we want to know that point, and then we are going to use that point in order to solve the question or to determine the equation of H. So we're going to move on. And so how are we now going to determine the equation of line H? Now, in determining the equation of line H, we need to remember something. Is that if two lines are perpendicular, then the product of their gradient is equal to -1. So for perpendicular lines, what that means, if two lines are perpendicular, and that means form right angle, then m1 times m2 is equal to -1. So what do we know? What do we know? We know that the first line G, equation of gradient of G, m1 is equal to a half. So what is that saying to us? Is that m1 times m2 is equal to -1. So therefore, a half times m2 is supposed to be equal to -1. Now, one of the things that we can always do is to remember this, is that whenever we want to find the second gradient, we always flip and change the sign. But m2 actually, so following the mathematical concept, so is -1 divided by half. So if -1 divided by half, that is equal to -2. So what do we know? We now know that the gradient of the second line is equal to -2, and if we use the same concept of y equal to mx plus c, then we now need to find what c is. So we want to find what the y-intercept is. But we know these 2 points. So this point that I showed you earlier was equal to x and y. So let us just substitute those values for x and y. So y is equal to 0, equal to m is equal to negative 2 times 4 plus c. So 0 is equal to negative 2 times 4 is equal to negative 8 plus c. So 0 is equal to negative 8 plus c. So therefore, if I take this 8 across to that side, then it now becomes positive because the sign here was negative. So therefore, 8 is equal to c, or we can say c is equal to 8. So now that we know that c is equal to 8, equation of h is equal to what? Y equal to negative 2x plus 8. So that's what that we are to write the term. Again, in order for us to do part 3 of the question, we need to, so part 3 of the question is asking us to find the coordinates of the point P showing all working. So we want to look at P, and P here is the intersection. So if you look at P, is the intersection of these two lines. So what we need to remember, that when the 2 lines intersect, it simply means that both equations are equal. Okay, so we need to remember that both equations are equal at that point in time. So at this point, so we want to find that point. So remember now we want to find what we want to find the coordinates of P. That means we want to find what the x value is and what the y value is. Okay, so I'm just going to use this this screen rather than going back down to the question. But the question is we want to find the coordinates of P. All right, so the first equation was for G. The equation for G was y equal to half x plus 3, and for h the equation was negative 2x plus 8. So that means y is equal to half x plus 3 and y is equal to negative 2x plus 8 at that point. So since the two equations are equal at that point, what we could simply say is that half x plus 3 is equal to negative 2x plus 8. So we could say that. And then we solve for x. In order for us to solve for x, we want to group like terms. So I'm going to take this negative 2x across to the left hand side, and I'm going to take the positive 3 across to the right hand side. So we have half x. So a negative 2x, when it comes across the equal sign, it becomes positive 2x is equal to 8. A positive 3, when it goes across the equal sign, becomes negative, so it becomes 8 minus 3. So half x plus 2x give you 2.5x is equal to 8 minus 3 will give us 5. So this is basically saying 2.5 multiplied by x is equal to 5. So what is that value of x? Now we know that when we multiply 2.5 by 2, we will get 5. But let's do it. So x is equal to 5. Now this 2.5 is multiplying the x, so when it goes across, it will go across as divide. So divide by 2.5. Now also, if when we divide a fraction by a fraction, we say 5 over 1 multiply 2.5 is the same as 2 2's 4 and 1. Or let us do the divide first. Divide by 2 2's 4 and 1 5 over 2. So when we divide, whenever we are dividing a fraction by a fraction, what do? We keep the first fraction, change the sign, and then we are gonna flip the second fraction. Okay, so when we cancel 5, we'll cancel 5, so we are left with 2. So therefore x is equal to 2. So now we know that x is equal to 2, but we would like to know what y is equal to, because we want to find the coordinates. So what is that saying? That value down there says 2. Well, what is the y value? In order for us to get the y value, we are going to choose any one of the equations. So let us choose the equation of g, which is says half x plus 3. So what that means, anywhere I see x, I'm going to substitute it with 2. So half of 2 plus 3, half of 2 is 1. So 1 plus 3 will give us 4. So y is equal to 4. So what that is saying at this point here is equal to 4. So what is the coordinate of P? P is equal to 2 on the x and 4 on the y. So someone might be asking, supposing I had used the other equation h, would I have got the same value? Let's check. So h was equal to y is equal to negative 2x plus 8. So if I substitute 2 here, what is y got? Y is going to be equal to negative 2 times 2 plus 8. So that is going to be the same as saying negative 4 plus 8. So therefore, negative 4 plus 8 is still equal to 4. So yes, the answer is that the y value would still be the same whichever equation we use. And that's how we would go about solving this question. Okay, so I hope you have understood how to this coordinate geometry questions. There are a number of things that we need to remember when we're doing coordinate geometry. Is that 1, the equation of a straight line is equal to y equal to mx plus c. 2, when two lines are perpendicular, the product of their gradient is equal to negative 1. And the other thing is that if two lines are parallel, their gradients are equal. So remember those 3 concepts, please. And again, don't be afraid to review this video. Try other questions. Leave a comment if you would like help with another question such as this. I'm willing to help you. So leave a question in the comment, and I will see how best I can help you. All right, be blessed. Have a great and wonderful